when you're trying to negotiate a sale, a lot of it's body language, even tone. As we'd been talking about earlier a little bit, we touched on like trying to negotiate via text is kind of negotiation suicide almost, because tone is lost. So like if you had an argument with somebody right before you read the text, suddenly your text looks like you're yelling at them, and really you're just asking, are you going to be late, or something along these lines, right? So it comes into play with that, as well as like when you're working with tenants and owners and all this stuff, you want to learn more, and you need to negotiate this way. And part of that is with the body language, and most of your time is actually spent asking questions. Generally emotions after people are feeling nervous. Usually it's the fight or flight. So they start getting argumentative and things get a little heated or whatnot. Recognize that early, and don't be afraid to slow it down and just be like, hey, let's either hit it on the head and just say, hey, let's calm this down, or take a break, or hell, make an excuse of like, oh, I got to go to the bathroom or something. Just slow it down. let it go down. And that being said, like sometimes there's just an impasse. Like you're here and I'm here, and it is what it is. It doesn't mean that we're enemies. It doesn't mean that, but it's like, this isn't here. And going to the real estate, like, you want this amount, we have this amount, and if we can't make this work, then I guess this isn't for us.
Yeah.
Growing up as a child, our dinner, we always had them together. It was mom and dad had to be home. Later on in the years, not so much, because sports and activities and whatnot take over. But it was always together.
And did you have siblings or anything, or?
No, they got it right the first time.
I love it. That's great. So what types of conversations would you guys have? Do you remember anything that stood out?
Not well. It's kind of. I guess we had quite mixed conversations. I was definitely in trouble a lot in school. Some people say it's intelligence. Other people say it's just being a jackass. So lots of conversations were about like why I did whatever I did, and it was interesting too because my pops is a little bit more peaceful and my mom's is a little bit more fiery. So I guess that's why they were together. Yeah. It was sort of it's mostly just your day-to-day stuff and kind of figuring out what are you doing.
Yeah. So would you consider yourself more of like a rebel growing up? Like you weren't necessarily the type that was, I guess, conforming to what society thought they should be doing, I guess. Does that make sense?
And it still resonates to this day. Again, not as much, when you're younger, you just sort of do things because, and many of them are dumb.
Yep. No,
I'll own it.
Completely understand. So did you go to college? What was your path, after high school? How did you start your careers off in that?
After high school, I was, just teaching skiing and
working in bars. Where were you teaching skiing at?
Just up Cypress Mountain, which is like a local hill in Vancouver.
Okay. Very cool.
So that's what I did out of high school and that, and then eventually I hurt myself, so that ended that.
Do you still ski anymore or no?
Yeah, totally, as much as I can.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, we're actually heading over to Vail in about 3 weeks, so excited about that.
Yeah, so I definitely, like, anytime I can get up there, I definitely can, and especially like with it being 30 minutes out of downtown, you can get up there for a bit and then back to work.
Yep. No, makes sense. Yeah. So you're teaching skiing, you got hurt. What happened next to you?
Decided to go to school for a bit. So I went to Kwantlen. I was doing fashion marketing. Then basically just, working retail, stuff like this, low level kind of thing, and running a clothing line at the time, which is now defunct, of course. But sort of got done with that, and then I entered into working at the casinos and bartending because it was pretty easy money. Yeah. They paid pretty well for counting to 21 and quitting. And then ended up mostly dealing poker and supervising poker.
That's very cool. And before we started recording here, we were talking about some books and that you've read called Tells. Talk a little bit about that and some things that you learned with that. Because again, we both have, kind of a fascination, passion for being able to see things that aren't necessarily being said. So what were some of those learnings that you picked up and applied in a real life situation?
Yeah, it was a book with Phil Hellmuth, and I forgot who the FBI guy
Yeah,
was.
yeah,
Oh,
we
I think the
think,
book.
yeah, Chris, it might have been Chris Voss, maybe potentially.
Yeah, and the book was called "Read 'Em and Weep." Or,
Okay,
read 'em and reap. Sorry, not weep.
got it. Interesting. I haven't heard of that one. I'll check that out.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just kind of interesting just to read about like poker tells. And of course, while I'm at work, just walking around and sort of seeing if this works out, of course, I get to see the finish of the hand, and I actually get to walk behind the person and half the time see their cards anyways to see if it's right.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because using that, you can transfer a lot of stuff into real life. One of the main takeaways that I found is that people are taught to lie with their face, but not with their feet. And so a really good example of this is kids are always told, oh, your cousin is coming over, at least pretend to like them or whatever it is, right? So they're told to put on that smile and they know how to do that. But if you're at dinner, you can see their feet are pointed towards the door if they want to go to play or whatever. It's like, you're not taught to do that.
Yeah.
Same thing works with adults. If the people are in a conversation, if their toes are pointing directly at each other, most of the time they don't want someone to join them. So you can use that at network. If people have their feet kind of spread a little bit apart, it's more okay to join this conversation. But if they're pointing directly at each other, leave those two be.
Yeah, interesting. And if they're pointed, away from that person, that basically means that person is trying to get away from the conversation more. Like
yeah, exactly. Maybe give them a wave or a nod, or you know what I mean, and kind of put alone, and they'll come network with you.
Yeah, love it. Any other things that you can remember from the trainings there?
Not offhand. I probably should reread the book.
Yeah, like I said, I love body language. I love, again, that unspoken communication that you can pick up on. And I've heard too that if you look somebody in the eye and their pupils are very, very dilated, and obviously there's variables with this, because obviously if you're in bright or dark, it's going to affect it. But like if they're very, very dilated, that means that person is trying to basically take in as much as they possibly can. So they're trying to concentrate, and they like whatever it is that you're hearing. So if you're in a conversation and you see somebody's pupils that are dilated, maybe they're interested in whatever it is that you have to say, or or attracted to you or whatever. So yeah, interesting stuff.
Yeah. Well, I guess now that you mention it, one of the things I remember is that you have to set a baseline as well. But you look for pacifying things as well. If someone's nervous, they're gonna rub the back of their neck or start stroking their hair, or get fidgety, stuff like this. It's pacifying things. Now that's why you have to set the baseline, of course, because like maybe they have lice and that's why they're scratching their head.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yep. It's funny. So what happened after your string there in the casino and the dealing and all of that? What was your next step?
Actually real estate, and it was caused mostly from my mom. I'm a third generation. My grandma was one, my mom was one, and so I was like kind of avoiding it because I don't know why. I guess I was being dumb, but so went to book a trip to go riding, actually, like a bunch of local mountains. Let's go on a trip. And from the casino, because it's very regimented, I had to book next winter like a year in advance.
Oh wow.
And I was like, man, this is crazy. And so did that, was about to go on the trip, and then my mom was like, oh, is it cool if I join you? And then I was like, yeah, sure, come on up to the mountains, whatever, rent a cabin and all that, myself and girlfriend at the time and all that stuff. And it occurred to me, like, you don't have to ask anyone to leave. Like, you can just go. She's like, oh yeah, just get somebody to take care of my business while I'm out of town for the week or whatever, and then go. And I'm like, I am interested in this.
Yeah.
I get to pick my own day, kind of thing. So yeah, that gave me a violent push into real estate. And basically, as soon as I got back, I applied for my course and started doing it while I was working at the casino, working graveyards.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what types of what did you start off doing in real estate? Were you more on the realtor side of things, and what were some of the things that you focused on?
Yeah, I mean, I carry both licenses now, sales and rental. I started off in sales. Have been doing that for 10 years now, and I picked up the rental, I guess, about 3 years ago. just sort of add a little bit of something fresh to it, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
As well as what I use it now for is a full cycle. So now I work with an investor, buy a place. I know about the rent side, so I know what we're looking for, what the tenants are looking for, that sort of thing, manage it for them. And then obviously, because I'm still in sales, watching the market, like, hey, you can cash out now if you want and make good cash on it, or
Yeah.
however you want to go and sell it for them, and then either buy another one or do whatever they want to do. It's sort of a repositioning yourself as instead of being a used car salesman and
Yeah. Transactional.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Now I'm a more of a wealth management almost.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a great business model. And what types of properties are you typically working on? Are you doing, multifamily? How large? Is it single family? What are your thoughts there?
It's generally single family, mostly apartments, because
Okay.
obviously that's mostly what we have in Vancouver.
Yep.
Some houses, of course, but yeah, generally not like the multi-family, like 18 units. It's usually a single owner that owns, usually a maximum five-ish.
Okay.
A lot of our owners are single place, they have their place and the one that they're renting out, and they just sort of want a property manager to take care of it because there's a lot of hoops and the rules change sometimes monthly kind
Yeah.
of thing. And
Yeah.
so, you just don't want to be behind and inadvertently wreck yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So in your experience, what are some of the mistakes that I mean, I guess this could go a couple of different directions. What are some of the mistakes that you've made? But more importantly, I think what are some of the mistakes that you see a lot of people that don't necessarily use a property manager, making that a reason why you would suggest using a property manager?
For the property management side, some of the mistakes is just not being up to snuff with the rules. One of the prime example was, I guess it was last year or the year before, they got rid of a vacate clause, which before, uh, if you didn't have a new contract on a fixed term, then the tenant had to vacate. Some owners were using this to get around the rent raise restrictions and would try to pop their rent, $400 from one
Yeah.
month, 1 year last year to this year. And if you don't like it, too bad, get out.
Yeah.
So that was obviously not ethical,
Yeah.
but a lot of owners didn't realize that that was the case. And so we had a couple that, wanted to raise it more than the maximum, and they weren't aware that that was gone.
Yeah.
So it's just simple things, because a lot of people, if you're managing it yourself, you've got things to do.
Yeah.
like
Yep.
watching. So I think that was one of the main ones, as well as if things ever start to go sideways a little bit with a tenancy, there's a lot of hoops to jump through, as well as you're more practiced as a property manager than a one-off. Like, I will place 5 tenants, in a month or whatever, in a week, whatever it be, and an owner will place 5 tenants in the length of it that they own the place. So
Yeah.
obviously I'm going to get a significant more amount. I've seen things that they haven't seen.
Yep. Yep. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. So you can combine all of your experiences and learnings and failures and all of that, and they get to benefit from all of that. So using your background with negotiation and body language and all of that, how does that come into play with the real estate and property management side of things?
Um, Everywhere, really. When you're trying to negotiate a sale, a lot of it's body language, even tone. As we'd been talking about earlier a little bit, we touched on, like, trying to negotiate via text is kind of negotiation suicide almost, because tone is lost. So like if you had an argument with somebody right before you read the text, suddenly your text looks like you're yelling at them, and really you're just asking, are you going to be late, or something along these lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it comes into play with that, as well as like when you're working with tenants and owners and all this stuff, you want to learn more, and you need to negotiate this way, and part of that is with the body language, and most of your time is actually spent asking questions. A prime example is usually it starts off with a stand. I'm not going to pay, or I'm not going to sell for $500,000. I'm not doing it. So that's their stand, and a lot of people get hung up on that and argue about this, and that's not what you should be doing. You should be start asking more questions, trying to get to the area of concern. Like, is it? Do you need the money or X amount to get to where you're trying to go, or or, the rent's too much because you're concerned you won't be able to make your other bills. Like there's something more to this. And then if you really want to go to like the furthest and the nucleus of what you want, is you want to find like that motivator, that emotional driver. Because once you figure that out and you can identify it and simplify it or satisfy it, then you can really like get things done and solved it. You know what I mean? Like going back to that person who won't sell for $500,000 might be because their neighbor who they're friends with sold for 510 and they don't want to be embarrassed that, oh, I didn't get as much. It's a pride thing.
Yeah.
A lot of the time it's an emotional driver, and you can't logic emotion.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
A real good example for the can't logic emotion is all of us have been in a relationship with somebody who we know we shouldn't be there. Like you write it down and you guys are oil and water, but your emotions are still there. So you have to wait till they catch up.
Yep. No, makes sense. So if you find yourself in a situation where there is, this emotional block, I guess you can say, are there any things that you can do to start bridging that? I mean, I know, like you said, asking more questions, getting to the core of it, but what if the core of it is, an emotional situation? What do you basically walk away and say, okay, well, there's not much we can do with this one? Or how do you approach something like that?
In some cases, yeah. One of the things that does help as well is generally emotions after people are feeling nervous. Usually it's the fight or flight. So they start getting argumentative and things get a little heated or whatnot. Recognize that early and don't be afraid to slow it down and just be like, hey, let's either hit it on the head and just say, hey, let's calm this down, or take a break, or hell, make an excuse of like, oh, I got to go to the bathroom or something. Just slow it down. let it go down. And that being said, like sometimes there's just an impasse. Like you're here and I'm here and it is what it is. It doesn't mean that we're enemies. It doesn't mean that, but it's like, this isn't here. And going to the real estate, like you want this amount, we have this amount. And if we can't make this work, then I guess this isn't for us.
Yeah. So what are some of your plans for, this year and upcoming? Do you have any goals that you're trying to achieve as far as, your real estate business or property management business? What are some of the things that you're looking to try to accomplish?
Basically this year, I've spent the past couple of years working on different systems. I work with my moms a lot, and we've been working on some different systems to help for lead generation in particular, because that's the name of the game. You always have to keep that hop full or you're going to go hungry soon. It also helps, I find, with consistent lead generation, because one of the issues that a lot of realty people run into is it peaks when they have a lot of business, they close up and it valleys. If you keep on lead generating continuously, you don't ever peak and valley, you kind of just flow. So what my goal is this year is to really, we've been tweaking these systems and they've been fairly successful. And now we're just going to try to like ramp it up. Now that we know that like it's not, we're out of the experimental stage and we want to see if this is going to really like hit the track or not.
Yep. And I imagine, so you're probably automating a lot of this too, right? I mean, or are there people that you have, in place as well? Because, obviously the more leads that you generate, the more follow-ups and all of that, that start causing too. So how do you approach, or how do you tackle, I guess that additional workload that the additional leads are bringing in?
We generally keep leads, we sort of gauge them. It is quite automated, but you'll notice like some people start to stick out. And when they do, you nurture those ones more. There's going to be heaps and heaps of tire kickers out there. So you just kind of have to essentially grade them. And, obviously your top tier will be like past clients, people who know, like you, used your service. Second one being, people who are actually emailing back or conversing with you, or have talked on the phone or whatnot. And then of course your third tier, just, people who are looking for the free lists, or, just looking around. You can always find people looking for lists on the internet and stuff like that.
Yep. No, makes sense. So what are some of the challenges that you've run into with the I guess on the property management side of things, as far as leasing to potential tenants, or I guess qualifying potential tenants, have you found that your negotiation and body language experience has helped be able to identify and distinguish from a person that might be qualified as opposed to someone who may not be qualified? Any advice or tips there?
Definitely, yeah. Do your homework when they put in the application and say where they're working. Look at it, especially like during COVID times. Especially, you want to make sure that this job is relatively stable because a lot of things just went into upheaval. Prime example, even the casino used to be a great source of people renting. They're all closed now.
Yeah.
So, like, you want to do that. Definitely call their previous landlord, because they're with the body language and tone. Obviously, it's going to be on the phone for the most part, but you can tell, oh, they're here and they're up and happy about it, or like, oh yeah, that Chris, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
You can kind of get a gauge of what's going on with that. You can also tell when you talk to them on the phone. Like, do your pre-qualifying on the phone. Ask them how long have they been looking, what are they looking for, and like get them talking. A lot of times you can figure out if they're going to be a good tenant. If they're super cagey, there's something that's being hidden. Why? That sort of thing. And one of the main things is follow your gut. When I first started, I was still learning the ropes on the property management side, and a couple ones, there's three in particular that I can recall, and they looked great on paper, and I talked to their landlord and everything sounded really good, but there's something in my belly was like, this is something not right here.
Yeah.
And all three times it bit me. So now if my belly is saying something, just follow it. Don't argue with it. Doing it for a reason.
It's amazing how many people say that, and I've done the exact same things and same thing, and sometimes you still, it might not be that bad, and then it ends up biting you in the ass. So I completely agree. You got to just listen to that intuition when it's talking to you. So
absolutely.
Yeah, Hayes, this has been fantastic. If people want to learn more about you, your services, property management side of things, how would they get in touch with you?
You can either go to my website, which is hazesrealty.com. That's Haze with a Z, like big cloud. Or we also have a Facebook page that we're fairly active on, which is facebook.com, obviously, and /Haze Realty. Alternately, if they just want to call me, then my number's on both of those, along with emails and whatnot. I answer them all.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Excellent. Hayes, this has been great. I certainly appreciate the time and enjoyed learning a little bit about your body language and just being able to understand that unspoken language that's always happening, sort of in the background. So I certainly appreciate it, and I look forward to connecting with you again in the future.
Excellent. Thanks for having me, Matt. It's great to catch up with you there.